let's get right into the next one, right? It's back-to-back ladies fights, and I think that we're going to see some of the same, right? We got Valentina Shevchenko's sister Antonina, who is funny enough showcasing multiple aspects of her game. I think after the Katlyn Chookagian fight, she really took that to heart with not being able to showcase some of her wrestling, especially with Chookagian saying that was kind of the first time she feels like she's ever really landed clean takedowns in a fight. I mean, that stuff's going to get taken to heart. And I think when you look at the way she took down Ariane Lipski and just completely demolished her on the ground, it was easy work for her. And so that's where I really like what Shevchenko is showing us, is that she's got that mix of the game. I think that learning from her sister and seeing what she was doing, because I think that in the last few fights, especially if you go look at Shevchenko's tape, Valentina, the wrestling's phenomenal, right? Like, everyone's loving the striking, but that wrestling is just proving to be an absolute beast aspect of her game. And I think Antonina's starting to employ the same tactics here. And again, with a girl like Andrea Lee, who we've seen kind of have interesting fights, right? Roxanne Mataferi had a great second round, but then faded in the third. When you're taking on a girl like Mataferi who can take punches and who's able to push the pace and come forward and knows exactly how to win an MMA fight, she pulled that win off fair and square. And so that's where I'm having some questions about Andrea Lee's kind of approach to just the idea that you can't finish everybody early in a fight, and that, the 3-round game is where the battle really does take place for it. And she's had some bad luck, where you talk about double back-to-back split losses against Joanna Calderwood and Lauren Murphy, right? Those are fights where when you take a look at the way she lost to Roxanne, it's a tough blow, right? I think that's where she, as a striker and as a finisher, it's just hard when you come into the UFC, because you're so used to taking people, for granted that don't really belong at this level. But then when you start taking on people that have great defense, both grappling wise and striking wise, you kind of see what happens to you over the course of 3 rounds. So I think shaping up her game, we know the striking looks great. She's in great shape for the fights, but again, finishing so much early in her career. Fighting 3 rounds in the UFC against, the top level competition is just not easy. And I think that's where she needs to spend a lot more of her time when it comes to the athleticism of fighting 3 rounds in MMA. I think that's where a lot of people start to learn as they move up really quickly, where their only real issues lie. And so I really like the stats for both fighters. Again, we're talking about back-to-back girl fights where I think skill and technique meets a lot of power, things like that. Like Shevchenko, she's not going to show you some of the craziness that her sister does, but I think that from just an MMA all-around ability, right, that Lipski fight was a powerful showing. I think that was a very powerful showing after kind of, losing to Chookagian the way she did. So I'm liking what she brings to the table in this fight. It's really hard for me to look against her after she kind of humbled me disgustingly against Lipski. I really was humbled in that one, because I can openly say I didn't give her much credit coming out of that Chookagian fight, but I guess working with the champion and having that mentality in your blood really forces you to kind of change your ways. And she just made a complete 180. And I think that has completely won me over in a way where I now find it hard to roll against her, against the girl like Andrea Lee, where we've seen that repetitive issue. Now, could you have a similar outcome where she shapes up and starts to show us really good things for 3 rounds? Potentially. But I think that when you look at the way the Shevchenko sisters are coming into their fights, there's a lot more confidence and there's a lot more all-around ability where they're looking kind of scary. And I think that if Andrea Lee hasn't made significant improvements from these 3 straight losses, it's going to be a tough blow for her. So let's take a quick look at the lines. Again, open it up -190 favorite for Shevchenko. We can't really argue with that, right? Based on some of the tape that we've seen over the past. But Andrea Lee, kudos to her. Opening at a +160 dog. People are betting that up like crazy. Now she's coming in at about a +105, +100. I think that's actually a much more fair line. I think it's hard to discount her to that level. I think Vegas got that wrong big time. And so obviously, I think Shevchenko is going to probably hover up closer to that -130, because it seems to be betting up from that -125 a little bit. But I think that this fight's a lot closer, I'd say, than the last one, because if one lady's able to exploit her game plan, say in the previous fight with Mazani Kocheta, it should end up being a fairly one-sided fight. But whereas in this one, it's like when you look at the way both girls are able to really kind of gruel out a 3-round fight, if there's no real finish or if one of them gets exploited a bit, I think you're going to see some heart, you're going to see some grit, and that's what makes this a fun fight for me personally. So expect a banger. I think both these girls are going to have some fun with it. And, again, is this that potential where we're seeing some new faces maybe jack up to that, top 10 range where we can see some new bouts? Because some of these girl divisions of the top 5, it's almost like, taking turns just fighting the same people. They're running out of people to kind of throw up there. But I mean, again, I personally think the last fight could be on the main card. So with this one kicking us off into some of the bigger fights on the prelims, I'm quite happy.